Welcome everybody to the third edition of the Journalism AI Festival. It seems that I have a thing today for keeping myself on mute when I shouldn't, but I apologize for that. Welcome everyone. It's exciting to be here with you for session number 3 out of, I don't know, 17, 18, I'm lost right now, of this festival. It's the last session of day 1 and it's an exciting one. So I'm really happy to be back in the room with my colleague Sabrina, who's the producer of the festival, always working behind the scenes to make this happen, and the speakers that I will be introducing very soon. I will open the session by introducing our quick slides to tell you about the Journalism AI Festival once again, which is a 5-day learning experience, I would say, that we host this year for the second time after the first edition in 2020. And the festival, what it really is a celebration of the most exciting developments at the intersection of journalism and artificial intelligence. We put together the festival because we are lucky to have an incredible global community that we want to showcase when it comes to experiments, innovations, and best practices about the use of artificial intelligence in journalism. And when I say we, of course, the Journalism AI team, we are the team working on Journalism AI at Polis, which is the journalism think tank of the London School of Economics and Political Science. We are a very spread out team based in London, in Turin in Italy, and in Bangalore in India. And we do lots of different things. We have been doing lots of different things for the past 3 years, including research, training programs and initiatives, collaborative programs as well, that you are hearing a lot about in this festival and in the previous session especially. And we're lucky enough to have a fantastic global community, more than 3,800 people, I think, by now, who are part of our community from every corner of the globe. And it's with some of the people of the community that we're hosting this session. Just before I go on to introducing the speakers, a quick guide to enjoy the festival week. So as always, thank you if you're following the session on the live stream on YouTube. You have the live chat where you can ask your questions for the speakers throughout the sessions. We'll be taking them at the end, but feel free to drop them at any time, and I'll keep an eye on the chat. And you can also join the community on Telegram at t.me/journalismai. You can ask questions there and meet other like-minded media professionals and journalists interested in artificial intelligence. Please use the Journalism AI hashtag if you share what you're learning on social media, Twitter, and so on. And you can always check the program at journalismaifestival.com to know what's coming up in the rest of the week. Probably, if you're here, that's what I always say, you already sign up for the newsletter, but if you don't receive it, the link is everywhere on the festival website, on our own website, so you will find it for sure. And just our encouragement for this week, be open, be curious, be kind. We're all here trying to learn together and to make journalism better together. As I was saying, this is the last session for today, and it's a series of lightning talks with insights from the Journalism AI community. We have actually 4 speakers. One of them didn't get into the image, but you will meet him soon. But I'm really looking forward to introduce you to Anita, Megan, Jakub, and Jeremy that I was hinting at. So without further ado, we're going to start soon with our lightning talks. And first, I'm pleased to introduce Anita Zielina from the Newmark J School at the City University Graduate School of Journalism. I'll mess up the name, Anita. You'll fix it for me. Sorry for that. And Anita will be telling us about the business case, actually, for using AI in journalism. So that's all for my introduction. Sabrina will queue up the slides. And Anita, your 10 minutes starts now.
Thank you so much, Mattia. And hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm going to use my 10 minutes to talk about the business case for AI in journalism. I know that during this festival, during this amazing program, there are many conversations about the journalistic value of AI, about applications and technology applications that you can use, and that's great. My work focuses a lot on business models in journalism and on sustainability news. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this today. So let's start with something that I'd call business 101. How do media organizations actually make money, and what is relevant to kind of create value as a media organization? Now, actually, it's pretty simple. Businesses of all kinds, including media businesses, need to create value for several stakeholder groups if they want to exist and if they want to continue to exist. They need to create value, and value does not always mean money, right? Value can also mean value for professional and personal development, value for your life, learning value. But it also includes money, obviously. Businesses need to create value for their owners and shareholders, because otherwise their owners are not going to keep supporting them if they constantly make a bigger loss than they actually make revenue. They need to create value, obviously, for customers, consumers, subscribers, members, because otherwise no one's going to subscribe or become a member for an organization. And then number 3, they also need to create value for their employees, for their contractors, for their partners or collaborators, because otherwise they cannot continue to exist if no one is working with them and for them. So that's kind of the overall value creation stakeholder map that you need to think of if you run a business. Now, value creation is actually pretty simple if you think about making a business. I know it's very complex, but let's break it down to something simple. You can create more value by earning more money and or by spending less money. So if you do both of these things, more is going to kind of stay, more value is going to stay created in your pocket. Now let's talk a little bit and move that towards AI and artificial intelligence. Some technologies have big potential impact on value creation, because what they can do is they can lower the costs, the resource costs that it takes you as a business to produce something, in our case, journalism, and they can increase the willingness to pay. So they can help you create better products so that people are more likely to pay a better price for that. Both of these things move the arrows in the directions we want them to move, creating more value, lowering the costs. Now let's take a look at AI and news specifically. What are the areas that we see big disruptive potential for AI when it comes to the value creation part and the business model part? Now, obviously, the content creation side is one that is often talked about, that has been around for quite a few years. When you think about the conversations about robot journalism, which we all know is a very, very much a simplification. But the content creation part for sure is one where a lot of the attention is focused on. Obviously, there's something about content discovery, about scraping big data, about content analysis. There is big potential for AI in the whole area of content distribution. Think about automated reading recommendations. Think about newsletters that use smart artificial intelligence to personalize the experience, or think about websites that are personalized in a smart way. We do see big disruptive potential for AI in the whole marketing field. Think about dynamic paywalls or smart automated newsletters again. And then obviously advertising is an area that has for a very long time, frankly, already been disrupted by big data and also by artificial intelligence through better targeting, through better automation. Now, let's combine that with the conversation we had about value creation. The effect artificial intelligence can have on value creation, and therefore for the business model of media organizations, can be very substantial. Better products, better targeted products, better user experience, and there is proof for that, lead to a higher willingness to pay for users. So there is a chance that more people are going to want to become your subscribers, going to want to become your members, going to support your products, buy your products, if the products are better targeted towards them and are just better in the user experience. And AI can help make that happen. And then obviously, and I know that this is a word that comes, that sometimes is used as kind of a negative word, efficiency, but per se it shouldn't be. It's what you make of it. AI can help you lower the resource costs especially for redundant, recurring work processes, it can help you become more effective and efficient in the way you use your resources as a media organization. Let's just take an example, a very basic one that we often talk about when we talk about AI and news, smart earnings results. So basically, as an example, the 2 or 3 journalists you used to have copy-paste results from a spreadsheet to the content management system. If you create a smart automation that's actually faster than human beings, that's actually better than what human beings can produce, that might make your product better if you're a business publication. It might also help you lower your resource costs. So those 2 or 3 people who used to do pretty redundant, not very efficient copy-paste work, if you can use them to do actual proper creative journalism and create unique content, that's going to help you to build your unique proposition and your unique content. So the question is what you actually do with additional created value through artificial intelligence. And that is the point that I want to make is we always turn back to this question of, is AI good or bad? Does AI kill journalistic jobs or create new journalistic jobs? And like with many technologies, I think it's not that simple, right? It depends on what organizations make of those efficiency gains and savings. It's what organizations decide to do with the processes that they are working with and with the automated processes that they are building. Technology per se is not good or bad. It's ultimately what you make of it. So the last point I want to make is I want to take a brief look at the approach that media companies can take to deal with those efficiency gains and better products that they build through AI. And for the sake of simplicity, I just structured it in smart companies and stupid companies. And we all know we want to be in the left column with the smart companies. So how are media companies, dealing with the efficiency gains they see through artificial intelligence? Well, smart companies say we create more value, we create more earnings. We're going to give this value to our employees, to our clients, to our users, and to our shareholders. So we're going to distribute this value evenly so that everyone profits. Stupid companies decide that value only goes to their shareholders. So they don't redistribute this value back to their clients, to their employees, or to their customers. And you can see that a lot of the hedge funds that are currently very active, specifically in the US media system, just focus on value creation for shareholders and not the other stakeholders in the system. Smart companies that use artificial intelligence reinvest the savings, reinvest the money that they gained through more efficiency in the system. So remember our example, if you have 2 people who are now freed up from redundant copy-paste tasks, if you're a smart company, you think about how can I deploy those 2 people to create amazing, unique journalism. If you're a stupid company, you're just going to use that as an excuse to cut and going to say, oh, we saved money from 2 journalists. We're just not going to employ them anymore. Great. Our bottom line is going to look better. If you're a smart company, you use the opportunity of employing artificial intelligence in your newsroom, in your marketing, and in your technology teams to rethink and redesign the processes that you're actually using. And you try to focus more of what you're doing on your USP, the things that make you really unique and special. Stupid companies don't change and rethink their processes. They just continue to try to do everything and be everything for everyone and not rethink the workflows that need to be rethought because AI is being disruptive when it comes to workflows and processes. And last but not least, smart companies build their R&D muscle and their innovation muscle. They learn how to become faster, how to become more agile in terms of AI implementation and development. They collaborate with other players in the ecosystem. They just build that muscle over time. Not so smart companies think that what brought them to where they are today is going to be enough for the future. They don't build that innovation muscle. They don't collaborate in the ecosystem. They don't learn how to do fast and agile processes and research and development. So with that, I'm at the end of my talk. Thank you all so much. And I know that we're going to have time for questions at the very end of these little lightning talks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita, for opening this series of lightning talks. I especially like the very last point you made in your slides. Of course, throughout our collaborative initiatives, we hear this from our participants about really building a muscle. As you try to work even on one specific thing, you are building capacity in the newsroom and within your colleagues, and better connections maybe between the newsroom and the data science department. So all those kind of like side effects of innovation are as important sometimes as the main goal that we try to achieve together. So that point resonated with us, and really thank you, Anita, for opening the session with that. Very good. Then up next, just to continue, of course, as we were saying before, if you have a question for Anita, feel free to already drop them on the comments on YouTube. And at the end of the 3 lightning talks, we will get to Q&A time for all the speakers. Next up is Megan Chan from the Google News Initiative, who is now on screen with me. Megan will tell us a bit more about some tools for investigative journalism at Google, and also how local journalists can then benefit from them. So Megan, I hope that's a fair introduction of your talk. I know you will bring in a guest at some point in the conversation, but for now, I leave it to you to start with your lightning talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Mattia. Good morning from California. So excited to talk with you a little bit more about what we're up to here at Google. And so I'm Megan. I'm the news ecosystem lead here at Google, where I'm working on tools for reporters and publishers, as well as local news. And so one of the things that we launched a couple of years ago was Journalist Studio, which is really the idea that at Google, reporters, journalists use a lot of our tools, right? Search, mail, maps, etc. But there are some very special tools that we build specifically with reporters and the needs of reporters in mind. Things like Google Trends, and things like Outline VPN for security. And so one of those tools is Pinpoint, which sort of brings together the best of search and the best of sort of recording technology into one tool that you can use. And I think, the whole way that we really think about this is, how can we make this really powerful technology accessible to all reporters? And that means, anybody of all technical ranges and technical abilities. So I would love to show you this tool and walk you through Pinpoint. Now, we've shown Pinpoint before, but as always here at Google, we are constantly looking at ways to improve. And so the most notable changes here in the tool are obviously connected to search, but I'll show you some other really great features that I think are really important in empowering really great journalism. And we've already seen how useful this tool can be. Maria Ressa in the Philippines with Rappler has used this to really quickly look at some recently released CIA documents. Quinto Elemento in Mexico looked at this to look at some corruption with a construction company, as well as Abraji in Brazil has been uploading a lot of different documents to share with the ecosystem. I think all of us journalists are constantly under a lot, we sort of get these documents, but then don't know what to do on them. How do we act on them? How do we constantly share this information, not only within our own organizations, but also with our colleagues outside of that? And then also recently, the Boston Globe used this tool to go through just hundreds and hundreds of records in the US, looking at driving records. And they actually used this in a series called Blind Spot, which won the Pulitzer Prize for investigative reporting. So we're very happy to be able to support that through our tool. So I'd love to jump into that tool now, if we can bring that up on screen, and I can show you here. So if you just, I think Mattia is going to drop the link in the chat if you want to check it out on your own, but here you go, g.co/pinpoint. When you first get here, you'll see there's a workspace where you can create your own collections, as well as a whole set of collections These are mostly US based. And then, like I said, with Abrasia in Brazil at the moment, of different sort of corpuses of data that you can go through on your own. I am going to just jump into one that I have right here. And, one thing is that we're constantly evolving. So you can upload directly from your desktop. You can upload from Drive. You can upload a whole bunch of different, your usual suspects of file types. We've recently added the ability to upload Zoom and Meet file types as well. And one thing that I think is particularly unique here is the ability to upload email files, which I think have always been a little bit gnarly to go through. So here, as you can see, what is automatically done is those Pinpoint is automatically looked and extracted the most commonly mentioned people, organizations, and locations. I come from political journalism background, so for locations in the US, zip codes are actually really useful to see the most commonly mentioned zip codes there. And then, of course, one of our most powerful technologies here is search. And so, as you can see in the search documents, I am going to search for, here we go, sorry, lunar, since we're looking at a set of documents about space. And as you can see here, because of search, it's actually finding synonyms here. So moon and lunar. And so we've had a lot of partners have success. The Boston Globe, again, used this when they were looking into, what kind of equipment are police sort of cataloging that they're buying, and then what would we think the sort of like normal name would be. And so it's actually a really great way to try and triangulate different information you might be looking for. So here you can see moon and lunar. I'll also show you one really great thing that we have in here is it can the ability to recognize handwriting. So as you can see here, it actually picked up the word state here, which is written in handwriting on the sides. I know that, when you get documents almost anywhere in the world, they're not always just beautifully, type printed out. Sometimes there's handwriting in the side. Sometimes they're sort of a little bit upside down. And so Pinpoint is really able to capture all of that together. I'm also going to show you here. So one thing that's really great about Pinpoint is we also have the ability to use OCR to recognize text within images. So the way that I describe it is, it's not quite at the level yet where, there's a picture of zoo animals and you can see it can automatically identify the types of animals. But if the panda is wearing a shirt that says, "I am a panda," it will actually pick up the word panda if you search for it here. So obviously I don't have a picture of a panda in this set of documents, but you can see here in the middle highlighted in the green is STDN, which is actually like just a sort of job title of this person working. So that is a pretty exciting thing. One of the other great features that we have actually made a lot of progress on is, again, sort of bringing these great technologies from Google into one tool. And one of those is also just audio recording. So you can upload an audio recording. It will automatically transcribe this into a PDF. I'm going to click on this here. So you can see here, one of the great things about this is that's going to separate it out by time code automatically. And then if I go ahead and I say I want to jump down here to this, I can click on the blue.
If you don't mind, I could think of a job on a ranch in California.
And so you can hear that automatically go. One of the great new features that we have here is the ability to highlight. So I'm going to highlight this text right here. So I can highlight it and I can get the link so that I can send this to a colleague who might be working on it so they can jump directly to this, or I can just copy the text directly out of the file. In addition, one new thing we've heard from a lot of people is and users is the need to be able to download the transcript automatically or download the audio file as well. Here again, I can copy this link to the document, and there are ways to share the collections within the tool, which happy to get into that more if anybody has questions on the side. So knowing that we don't have a ton of time, I would love to bring our special guest in. And we have recently made a very exciting announcement. And like I said, one of the great things about Pinpoint is its ability for, as you saw, almost anybody to use it, regardless of sort of technical ability. And so we think this is really important for people who, especially local journalists. And so bringing Jeremy Gilbert, who's the Knight Chair for Digital Strategy at Medill, on. And so we have recently partnered to announce the data-driven
Data-driven reporting project.
Sorry, data-driven reporting project, which is a $2 million fund for investigative journalism in the US and Canada for journalists serving local and underrepresented communities. So, Jeremy, I would love for you to talk more about the program, the fund, and sort of what you're up to.
I'm thrilled, thank you, Megan, for the really generous gift to Medill that is going to enable this project. The whole idea behind the data-driven reporting project is that it's for journalists who are working on document-based investigative projects, just like the kinds of stories that Megan was referencing, and that these journalists should be serving either local or underrepresented communities. That's a really important part of the project. We want to help people who otherwise might not be able to do this work. And for now, at least, the audience is the United States and Canada. So the program really builds on three core strengths of Medill: our commitment to investigative journalism, the work that we have done with local communities, and especially our interest in technology. So the Knight Lab, which is a core part of Medill, is an experimental community for journalists, technologists, and designers. And we've been doing a lot of AI-based work. And so in this way, the work that the Journalist Studio has done with Pinpoint and the work that Medill is doing really fit together into the data-driven reporting project. And the whole idea is that whether you're a freelancer or a local newsroom, that you will be able to apply for funding to support your project. So these should be stories that you hope to be able to publish in the next year. And we're going to start taking applications as early as December of 2021. So what we really hope that you'll be able to do is go to datadrivenreporting.medill.northwestern.edu, and that URL will be in the chat, and sign up with your email address so we can send you more information as soon as we're ready to start taking applications. So again, thank you so much to Megan and the Journalist Studio Fund for starting this project. We're really excited about being able to support great local journalism.
And I think too, Jeremy, we should mention that while obviously, we think tools like Pinpoint can really help power these types of investigations, Google, myself, we actually have no insight or visibility into the selection of the projects or the jury process as well.
Absolutely. So Medill will set up the application process and put together a panel of unbiased neutral jurists who will choose which projects. And then actually, once we select the projects, in addition to the funding, we'll support the projects through training and other kinds of technical resources. So we're really excited to build to further develop the community around local investigative journalism that uses technology. And we're really thrilled to have this opportunity.
Thanks. And, I had a question for you, Jeremy, about it, though, which is, we have talked a lot about sort of these, big ideas about how AI powers the larger newsrooms. But when it comes to like just a reporter and getting through the documents and the information and the interviews, how have you seen like AI be used on sort of this local and like sort of these smaller organizational levels?
The thing that I love most about AI is what we include as artificial intelligence and what we don't. So as soon as we have sort of demystified a new process or a new technology, it stops being artificial intelligence and it starts being something like spell check or Grammarly. And so what I'm really excited about is that I think some of these investigative tools, and I think Pinpoint is a really good example of this, take something that's actually fairly complicated, an unordered set of documents, and suddenly makes it searchable, makes it sortable, makes it easy to understand. And at least to me, that's what we're starting to see with some of these technologies, that what used to be possible in a bespoke way by very highly resourced newsrooms is more and more being available to local newsrooms. And I think that's the thing that we're most excited about trying to help.
Awesome. Well, we are really excited to see what comes out of this project. So thank you.
And thank you both for this fantastic presentation and for telling us everything about the new data-driven reporting project. The link is in the YouTube chat for anyone that is interested in knowing more, and really encourage you to sign up if you want to make sure to seize the opportunity when it comes. So Megan, Jeremy, really thank you so much for this second talk of this round. It's a pleasure working with you, and we're going to continue, of course, working together next year. So this is just a good reunion for us to be together in front of our global community. So thank you for your great work. That brings us to the third and last lightning talk of this session. So soon, Jakub Parusinski will be joining me from The Fix Media as Jeremy and Megan leave the screen. And Jakub, really excited to have you here to hear more about this research you have been running into how newsrooms in emerging markets, especially in Latin America and Central and Eastern Europe, if I'm not wrong, are benefiting from AI, and how AI may transform news media in the future in these regions. So really looking forward to hearing your talk. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much, Mattia, and thanks so much to the whole Journalism AI team for putting together such an exciting event. Really looking forward to the next couple of days. Yeah, as Mattia mentioned, my name is Jakub Parusinski. I'm an editor at The Fix. Aside from that, I also am a lecturer at the Stockholm School of Economics in Riga on media entrepreneurship. And most recently, for the last 10 days, the acting CFO of the Kiev Post, which, as so many media, so unfortunately nowadays, was shut down amidst attempts to interfere editorially. But all is not lost. The team is rebuilding something new and great. And I've had the pleasure to participate, but I apologize in advance. The last 10 days have been extremely challenging. But that being said, let's move to sort of the applications of AI and machine learning in emerging market media. And this is a topic that I always love to sort of tackle it, because it's we cover what is happening in this part of the world or this part of the world, what is happening in a specific function or area, and then when we look at emerging markets, which are so vast and so diversified, pulling it all together is always a kind of a specific challenge. But I'll try to pull out sort of the most interesting and pertinent observations that we've had in the course of our research over the past year. Maybe just a thought on that sort of always guides me when sort of tackling this kind of topic. The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. That's very much something that can be said for the applications of AI and machine learning, I guess, not just in Western markets, but even more so in emerging in the emerging ones. So as Mattia said, over the past year, together with international media support and El Clip in Latin America, we've been looking at emerging market media, really from Mexico to Kyrgyzstan, and have found some incredible stories along the way. I'm not going to dive into all of them just for lack of time, but one of my favorite is actually the photo that you see on the right. It's a team of people with really, they started with no data science background, and yet now they have rolled out 10 or more sort of applications of AI in journalism. And it really goes to show you sort of how self-taught, creative, innovative people can really revolutionize the industry in ways that are so interesting and so exciting and so difficult to predict. Maybe just to start off, we asked sort of all of these media, was about 40 publications across 20 countries, how they rated their knowledge of AI. And as a former journalist, I may say that they were unexpectedly modest, saying that actually their knowledge was pretty low. But despite the fact that they rated their knowledge quite low, the amount of applications that they found was very impressive. So going back to a point that Anita raised, we talk a lot about the story of content creation. That's obviously the one that sort of draws the most attention. The whole idea of kind of robots coming in and writing stories. But the applications that we found were really all across the value chain. It was the stories, but it was also, managing subscriptions. It was creating, automated reports. It was applications of AI to sort of speed up the human resources, the hiring process, right? So really, the applications of AI are much broader. And what I found really interesting is this kind of recurring theme amongst the media that were really pushing the thinking on what you can do with these new solutions was the theme of don't start with what AI can do, start with the problems that you have. And I think this is a really important point, because as much as a new technology is exciting and we all sort of like to play around with whatever new gear or tech or whatever we have, in order to make it really useful, to turn it into efficiency gains, improvements in products, a better business model, we really have to start from the problems that we actually run into. When it came to sort of the specific applications, we still see that most of them were focused on the editorial side. So about half of the media, no matter whether they were large, medium-sized, or small, sort of focused on something that ranged from, editorial data analytics through sort of automated, content generation based on pre-populated templates or things like that. But especially when it came to media that were on the larger end, we saw that they were really looking into their internal operations and thinking about how we can make them more efficient with the use of new technologies. And this is sort of on the one hand kind of obvious, because you do need the scale to sort of be able to actually understand and improve these things. But it's also quite impressive to see that even amongst smaller media, there were really attempts to sort of go beyond just thinking about content and really thinking about media as an entire organization. The single biggest challenges, I would say, were around HR. So, finding qualified candidates, and please bear in mind that we actually ran this survey before the Great Resignation started this summer. So, already then it was really difficult for media to be able to find the right people to actually develop in-house solutions, or even have the understanding to apply third-party solutions. So, they were too expensive. They didn't have the networks to find the people. They weren't able to make a compelling enough offer to sort of keep them. But there was also another challenge that I found particularly interesting, and this is actually something that we saw that I think is not unique to the emerging markets, which is that even if you're able to sort of convince that, data analyst or AI developer to come over from a big tech company and sort of join your media based on mission or values or whatever, keeping those people is really difficult. Because the kind of work that they end up working on is just not that interesting compared to some other industries. So the sort of what we saw that worked really is those media where the senior management and sort of there was a kind of overall commitment to the new technology that sort of kept people excited and kept developing new solutions, so that those few sort of precious specialists that we could attract would actually stay with us. The other big issue that we saw with media, which again is not entirely unique to sort of emerging markets, was the structure itself. So many media continue to be sort of dominated by silos, with Chinese walls between, or firewalls between, editorial and commercial. Product typically tends to be on the side and often ignored. And I know a lot of media say they don't have silos anymore, but sort of reality tells us otherwise. In order to be really innovative and to be able to deploy new solutions at scale and at a certain pace, you need cross-functional teams to work on them. And And it was, and this is where we see that the digital players who sort of call themselves media and are composed of journalists but behave like tech companies have a clear advantage. And in many emerging markets, the new leaders of the in the media space are these digital players, and we see that they're doing really interesting things. You know, a slightly complex sort of slide, but let me try to explain it to simplify it. What you see at the bottom here are the lines that show the level of human capital and sort of the knowledge and tech outputs of a country. It's based on the Global Competitiveness Index. The top two lines are sort of the business sophistication, the collaboration between academia, business, and other institutions, as well as creative outputs and protection of IP. And what we see consistently across emerging markets, which is holding them back, is not enough collaboration with local businesses, where they might headhunt talent, by the way, as well as poor protection of IP, which makes it all the more difficult to sort of invest in mid to long-term technologies. So just to sort of close out, so why should we actually care? Why should we really focus on what is happening in the emerging market space if there's already so many exciting things happening in developed markets? Well, my answer to this is really, the world, the speed of disruption is increasing. We saw it over the last couple of years with TikTok, which just grew at a phenomenal pace and sort of, leveraging, by the way, quite savvy algorithms in the process, and which really sort of took the world by storm. And those kind of disruptions are happening more often. The difference, I would say, is that the pace of disruptions and the sort of the intensity is something that is greater in emerging markets and something that people are more used to. So just for a final slide, so this is what happened in Belarus over a period of basically 3 months in the summer of 2020. By the way, Belarus, huge tech talent hub in Eastern Europe, due to censorship. In a country of about 9.5 million people, essentially a third of the population switched to receiving most of their news and consuming via Telegram because it was the only resource available. Over 3 months. I can't think of another market that would move at quite that pace. And, being in the midst of that, seeing how quickly things change and getting your organization ready to react quickly is something that does give emerging markets an edge, and which is why I think we'll continue to see a lot of exciting things coming out of them in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jakub, for this insightful presentation and for the third of these lightning talks. Everyone is appearing back on screen. So as we got a couple of questions now from the audience on YouTube, my personal thank you to you all for the lightning talks. It was very enlightening to hear about different experiences from different parts of the world, of course, and looking at AI from different angles as well. So a bit of a first question coming from in-house, so to speak, as our own Charlie Beckett, the director of the program, was asking Anita, is looking at the business case that you were referring to, is it harder to assess the return of investment with AI because of the nature and the complexity of the technology itself?
That's a great question. And what I'd say is, I think it's always disruptive technologies don't react well and don't work well with the usual kind of measures that we take, like return on investment. Because what you're ultimately doing when you're investing in a very new disruptive technology that has potentially big potential in the years to come, you're making an investment today for something that will pay off in 2 or 5 or 10 years. So if you try to fit that in your usual kind of quarterly returns numbers, it's never going to work out. The ROI is never going to look positive, right? Because you're making an investment for the future, and the future means that it's not going to pay off a week from now. So I think that's why it's hard, because media companies are so cash strained. That's why it's hard to make and invest in something that's not going to impact your immediate returns a month or 2 months from now, which is frankly why I think it's so important to have funds, foundations, tech companies, universities making these means available, because what it does, it kind of helps media organizations take away a little bit of the risk of making those investments that are crucial for their future, but where it's going to take a few years until they actually pan out and return revenues.
Absolutely. Thank you for elaborating on that. Megan, I'm coming to you next. There was a bit of a technical question, I think, from the audience, from Michele, about if it was possible to share, if they were publicly available, the time-coded links in the Pinpoint transcripts or not. I'm sure you have an answer for that, so I'll let you elaborate.
So in order for a user to access a shared link, you have to share the full collection with them first. And so right now we don't allow any user to share a collection more publicly. The collections that you see are all through sort of official partners with us. But we are always looking, for ways to make this much more accessible to folks. I think maybe if I'm kind of understanding part of the motivation behind the question is, this is really much more of like a reporting tool and not as much of a publishing tool.
Fair enough. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Thanks
Good.
for the question.
So I think we're almost up for time, but just to get one question to everyone, Jakub, I'll take the opportunity to ask you a question myself, because something that we, of course, as a global project, as Journalism AI, we get asked a lot is, what are you learning that is specific about journalists in one region of the world using AI compared to another? So considering that you had this interesting study with newsrooms from Latin America and Central and Eastern Europe, I bring that question to you. So have you noticed anything that is specific to journalists and news organizations in these two markets in terms of like the way they approach AI, or what kind of use cases they are most interested into?
So that's a big question, but I think one thing that we noticed that is very interesting is the impact of language and the impact of alphabet. You wouldn't think about it, but actually, gathering data in Cyrillic, completely different from doing it in a Latin alphabet. Similarly, it makes sense to develop applications for English or Spanish, but if you're doing it in Estonian with 800,000 sort of native speakers, completely different numbers. And adapting to that linguistic reality leads to all kind of different outcomes.
And that's actually a very interesting question, and something that we will see coming up again at the festival during the program. On Friday, there's going to be a session about NLP with a specific example from a Tunisian newsroom and how they thought about the challenges with Arabic language and algorithms and natural language processing. So we're going to definitely get back to this. So thanks, Jakub, for sharing your experience there. So time's up, I think, for this session. So I want to thank the four of you for sharing your insights in this session, which closes day one of the Journalism AI Festival. So before I say hello to the audience, once again, a big thank to the four of you, Anita, Jakub, Jeremy, and Megan, for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you again. So with this, we are off for day one of the festival. Tomorrow, we have 4 more sessions coming up, from the use of AI to cover the pandemic and the COVID-19 story, to our teams in the Americas of the Collab challenges, sharing what they have learned during these 6 months, and so much more. So tune back tomorrow morning. I believe the first session starts at 10:30 a.m. GMT, so London time, which is always the time we refer to in the scheduling of the program. So I want to thank you all for your question, for joining us today at this second edition of the Journalism AI Festival that we couldn't be more excited to have finally kicked off. Thanks to my team for making this first day go smooth and perfect. So thanks to Sabrina, Lakshmi, and Charlie. And with this, I say goodbye. I say good evening. Have a good evening if you are in my time zones, or have a good night. Have a good rest of the day if you are somewhere else around the world. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.